What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. I want to do a little bit of a dive into the finances being bled out in this country. I really hope you guys enjoy this video because it seems like anytime we try to talk about these kind of things on the channel, they get censored out, pushed out by YouTube. They get squashed within minutes. So if you're enjoying this content as it's being pushed out, I urge you to please leave a thumbs up and a comment, share it out on your socials. It helps push us out past YouTube's censorship, because we're going to talk about the green climate initiatives. I can't call it other things than that. We all know where the Fringe stands on these programs and the view from Mark Carney. You know where I stand on its success rate and what I think it's beneficial to Canada and what isn't. But let's take a look at what's going on recently. Elevate Podcast tweeted out here via Mark Nixon. Rosemary Barton and Minister Melanie Joly say that the biggest threat to Canada is climate and that we're living in a climate emergency. They're ramping this up. This is the paid shill media prostitutes of the Canadian government that are lining up to say, follow us and follow our fear porn, follow all these things that we're putting out. Believe what we're saying, just like the elbows up crowd, the scamdemics, the whole kit and caboodle. I can only play a fraction of the fear that they're putting out here to try and poison the minds of today's viewers. Because should I play more than too much, again, this video will be flagged for copyright. But let's take a look as Rosemary Barton looks inside herself to talk to Melanie Joly.
You know, the auto sector is under extreme pressure. Obviously, that's what you're dealing with. But climate is also under extreme pressure. And I wonder what the move to review this policy says about the government's commitment to climate change.
Well, the Minister of the Environment, Julie DeBruson, is working on a new climate competitiveness strategy. We believe that it is for us in our interest, not only, of course, to fight climate change, which is obvious, but also to reap the benefits of an industrial strategy linked to being able to be in clean tech.
Okay, so right there is one of the most important things she's talking about, reaping the benefits. So the government is going to have you believe that their investments, God, look at that resting bitch face of Rosemary Barton. I would hate to be somebody that has to be married to that woman or go on a date with her. I can't imagine how engaging that process would be. That said, I know it doesn't matter to this video, but we just got to throw it in anyways, because it just strikes me as that's an ice queen. What's happening with the initiative is that you have to follow the money here, folks. It's all about money. It's always been about money. When you look at Dalian, SDTC, when you look at Trudeau's many scandals, which went uninvestigated, we'll say, the consequences were simply, we spend millions of dollars holding committees that really go nowhere. Nobody gets arrested. Nobody goes to jail. Everybody has parliamentary privilege. So do as you like. And this is part of the problem with our current society, is that we have a functioning government that no longer just skims a little off the top and people pay their taxes and move on. You now have a government that's openly flaunting what they are doing in front of us. They've been doing it for the last 10 or so years, and people just kind of sit and go, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Mark Carney, even though we're in a recession right now, we are in a full-blown recession. In fact, he said that it's a rupture in Canada, yet he won't pull back on the temporary foreign worker program because it's too beneficial for them. He won't pull back on his spending because why would a government ever have spending in control? We've cited his many replayed interviews of him sitting around saying that while he was advising Justin Trudeau pro bono, he was aware that policy pushes profits. I'm going to have a petition that we're going to share out here, courtesy of Northern Perspective, when it comes to the EV mandate and EV vehicles. I'm going to leave that for another video. But Mark Carney isn't pulling back on the Green Initiative. Things are only set to get worse for Canadians, for their choices. You've got this tweet coming out saying Mark Carney confirms the industrial carbon tax isn't going anywhere and that it will be a major strategy of his government. Well, it gives them their slush fund. It allows them to pull back the money that they gave out for, I won't say reducing the carbon tax. I don't want to say removing. They didn't remove anything. And Pierre Poilievre warned everybody about this. He hasn't removed anything. He just reduced it to zero. This is how they get their money back. I'm not going to quote him because you'll hear the quote in the video, but it says, new lipstick on the pig is coming, which will result in more red tape for business investment and operations, just like he admitted the EV mandate is causing. This is why people were saying, oh, but he pulled out of the EV mandate. I'm going to show you why and why it doesn't matter as soon as we finish. So stick with me, folks. Keep in mind, this video, I believe, is in French with narration, but let's take a look.
Reduction of GHG emissions, for example. We already have, and in future we will strengthen tax credits. The idea being to spur more investment in clean energies. Secondly, we will be keeping the carbon industrial tax, and we need to improve the operation of those markets. As I just said before, there will be a competitiveness strategy and policy in carbon taxation, at the same time a nature strategy.
So what Mr. Snapperhead here is saying is that he's going all in. Even though the EV stuff, the EV mandate was reduced to help people in Ontario. Keep in mind, Alberta didn't get C-69 repealed. They didn't get the tanker ban repealed. They didn't get anything done to benefit them. In fact, Mark Carney hired a stooge from Calgary, Don Farrell, to the salary of $700,000 a year, roughly, to sit and approve his projects that aren't going anywhere, that aren't getting out of the ground. But when people say, but hey, Fringe, he got rid of the EV mandate, we're okay, things are going to be okay. I'm going to show you why you have to follow every one of these stupid little scandals when they put them together. I've said for a long time that when you look at the business that went on in the government from Justin Trudeau entering office, now keep in mind, he only had a net worth of about $6 or $7 million when he became Prime Minister of Canada. He left with a net worth of over $100 million as he got to ride into the sunset with no consequences for his actions, I might add. But during that time, many investments were announced in Canada that went to places like new EV plants in the country, which Mark Carney now says, oh, okay, we'll get rid of them. We're going to help Ontario. We're going to help your auto sector, guys. Come on. Well, here's something you didn't know. Whenever they commit to these things, and we showed a video on the channel not too long ago talking about Mark Carney's attempt to try and ruse everybody that the natural gas, the liquid natural gas pitch in Germany was nothing more than theater, as that was outlined to say that this isn't a financial commitment. We can change our mind at any time. It was just a photo op. Here's what happens. As I asked Grok, how much money did the Canadian government give to EV companies up front for their assembly plants to come to Canada? Keep in mind that by canceling the EV mandate, by canceling the agreements with these plants, these guys still get to keep the money. Imagine that. Imagine if you were hired to do a job and before you even went into work, they said, you know what? We gave you a bunch of money up front to do this job, but we've changed our mind. We're going to go in another direction, but you get to keep all that money. You haven't even done anything. Congratulations. The problem here is this is our money that keeps going out. So you think giving billions of dollars to other countries was bad. Grok goes on to say the Canadian government, along with provincial governments, has provided significant upfront funding to electric vehicle companies to establish assembly plants and related facilities in Canada. Below is a breakdown of the known upfront contributions for EV assembly plants and battery manufacturing facilities based on available information. So before I get slapped with misinformation, this is Grok pointing this out. And it says that this is currently available information. Honda in Ontario. In Alliston, Ontario, announced in April 2024, Honda planned to build an EV assembly plant and battery manufacturing facilities in Alliston, Ontario. The federal and Ontario governments each pledged $2.5 billion in direct and indirect incentives, totaling $5 billion in upfront government support. However, Honda postponed their plans for at least 2 years due to a slowdown in EV demand. How you guys feel about that money going out? Without even doing nothing. Volkswagen, St. Thomas, Ontario. In April of 23, Volkswagen announced a battery cell manufacturing complex in St. Thomas, Ontario. The federal government committed $700 million upfront for plant construction, with Ontario contributing an additional $500 million, totaling $1.2 billion in upfront funding. Additional production subsidies of up to 13.2 were also promised, contingent on production levels. Well, again, it's been shut down, but $1.2 billion out the window again. Still paid for by the taxpayers, folks. A very large lump sum of $500 million on Ontario residents added on. Stellantis and LG Energy Solutions Nexstar Windsor, Ontario in 2022. Stellantis and LG Energy Solutions announced a joint venture for an EV battery manufacturing plant in Windsor. The federal government provided up to $529 million in project funding for modernizing Stellantis assembly plants to produce EVs, with additional support for the battery plant. The exact upfront contribution for the battery plant wasn't fully detailed, but the total investment included significant federal and provincial support, with the project valued at over $5 billion. So again, if they're only talking 529, but say we don't know the exact amount, you're somewhere between 529 million and 5 billion. Ford in Oakville, Quebec. August 23, Ford in partnership with EcoPro BM. Boy, that's a good one. They took a BM all right. And SK On announced a $1.2 billion plant in Bellecourt, Quebec to produce EV battery materials. The federal government of Quebec each committed $322 million, totaling $644 million in upfront public funding. Additionally, the plant was estimated to receive $590 in combined federal and provincial support through specific upfront amounts for Oakville, but we're not fully detailed. Are you guys getting a picture yet? Northvolt in Quebec. Northvolt announced $7 billion EV building plant near Montreal. Federal government pledged more than $4 billion in incentives, with Quebec contributing $2.9 billion in financing, including upfront capital. Again, that's money they get to keep. The total upfront government support was approximately $2.7 billion, with additional incentives of $4.6 billion. Linamar Corporation, Guelph, Ontario. Federal government announced up to $169.4 million through Strategic Innovation Fund to support Linamar's EV plant manufacturing and semiconductor packaging for EV batteries. So here we go. Total upfront funding, folks. The upfront contributions: Honda $5 billion, Volkswagen $1.2 billion, Stellantis $529 million, Ford $644 million, another Ford plant $590 million. So that's over $1 billion for Ford combined. Northvolt $2.7 billion, Linamar $1.69.4 million. The total upfront funding for these projects is approximately $10.8 billion, with some estimates potentially higher depending on unspecified portions of funding. The figure excludes production subsidies, which are contingent on output and can significantly increase total government support. Example, up to $52.5 billion for all EV supply chain investments when including subsidies and tax credits. So again, I have to point all this out. I know people are going to say, Fringe, that was an awfully long read, but we have to do that because they get slapped with misinformation. They're sourcing 25 different web pages that give these statistics. What's really funny is people saying, well, so this is just like Dalian. This is just like SDTC. This is the government padding the pockets of friends and their big club that we're not a part of. Hold on to your horses there, folks. It's not just that. I've asked Grok an additional question. Is Brookfield invested in EV technology? Yes. Brookfield has investments in electric vehicle technology primarily through its renewable power and transition-focused initiatives. So we already knew that from Mark Carney's values, from everything that he's cited with Brookfield, but it's transition-focused initiatives. So Brookfield stands to gain a massive fortune in the $10 billion that was already roughly given out to these plants to exist. This is where Mark Carney sat down and said, policy pushes profits. They're going to find another way outside of hurting Ontario manufacturing jobs to line the pockets of shareholders. That's all this is. They're just moving money around. We're playing the shell game with this government, and all they're doing is moving the ball to a different shell, folks. Energy Transition Fund, Brookfield Global's Transition Fund, which secured $10 billion in its first close in 2024, targets investments in clean energy and sustainable solutions, including EV charging infrastructure and related technologies, like battery plants. The fund builds on Brookfield's commitment to decarbonization with EV technology as a key focus area. Battery manufacturing is also listed down below. India and emerging markets. Brookfield is exploring EV-related opportunities in India, particularly in EV charging infrastructure and battery manufacturing. Sustainable Solutions Portfolio. Brookfield's broader Sustainable Solutions portfolio includes investments in technology that support EV adoption, such as renewable natural gas and carbon capture, which indirectly facilitate the decarbonization of transportations. So when you ask, why is it that all these government funds would go in and boost up these plants and give them $10 billion in funding just to pull the plug, just to protect Ontario jobs? Well, the elbows up crowd will tell you, oh, it's because Mark Carney cares. He cares about Ontario jobs. Doug Ford cares about Ontario jobs. It has nothing to do with it. They're doing this because they got the money they needed. They can cancel and walk away. Why should the company profit when the shareholders already got what they needed? This is the problem we have in this country. Corruption, corruption, corruption. Pierre Poilievre should be coming out this fall in the House of Commons and labeling Justin Trudeau as a criminal terrorist entity. This is treasonous. This is your money being siphoned out of your paychecks every 2 weeks. This is money that your children's children's children will have to pay. Because the government were just nothing more than greedy pigs at a trough, stealing from you the whole time, while the elbows up crowd said, oh, we don't want Donald Trump, though. Anything but Trump. Trump is costing us billions of dollars. Not personally, but the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome that is held by so many people in this country, is going to bankrupt Canada alongside with its criminally run liberal government. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I sure hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you hit that button again, leave a thumbs up and a comment down below. It helps more than you could imagine. It's free to do. Really helps us out getting these past censorship on YouTube. Share it out on social media. That helps immensely as well. Join me live here on the channel twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, for Unhinged Fringe on Wednesdays, Friday Night Fringe on Fridays, where I talk to a plethora of new hosts, as well as the beautiful Mrs. Fringe joining me on Fridays, as well as the greatest YouTube community on the platform inside of those live streams. We go through memes, we have some fun, we try to keep it lighthearted as much as we can and have a laugh once in a while because, well, we need to sometimes. But it's also a good opportunity for me to sit down and hear what you guys have to say outside of making these videos. And I most importantly look forward to hearing what you have to say this Wednesday and Friday, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel every Wednesday and Friday. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.